The show Victorious isn't just one of Nickelodeon's greatest hits. It's one of the biggest shows to ever hit kids' television. You don't have to take my word for it. Just consider the facts. As a live-action premiere, it did better ratings than anything else the network had ever put out. And when it comes to the age demographic between 6 to 11, and then that tween demographic 12 to 14, it consistently rated at the top of everything else that was on TV at that time. But all of that is pretty boring, because then there's the Ariana Grande situation. I mean, the actress on the show had some success afterwards, but she became a mega pop star immediately thereafter. And that's not normal. But here I am about a decade after the show went off the air, and I've come to find out that everything that happened in children's television has a hidden message. So I really wanted to know, what were we actually watching? When I say we, I'm really talking about other kids. Because, to keep it a buck, Victorious is right around the time when I kind of jumped off the Nickelodeon bandwagon. I was watching almost everything that they had up until that moment, and I just saw little bits and pieces, parts of an episode here, parts of an episode there. I knew the show was happening, especially because, I remembered Victoria Justice coming off with Zoe 101. I just wasn't paying attention all that seriously. But after everything I found out about Nickelodeon as a network, of course there's the Dan Schneider era, which this is certainly a part of. But in general, I wanted to see if the show is exactly what I thought it was, or worse. So, in order to be as unbiased as possible, of course, with my analytical mind still, coming to the party, I decided I was just going to pick a random Victorious episode. Again, completely random. So random I used a random number generator to determine which season to focus on, and then which episode in that season I would watch. And then I just watched it from start to finish and took incredibly detailed notes. So this is a breakdown of Victorious Season 2, because that's what the random number generator told me to focus on. It's an episode called Jade Gets Crushed. And I'm not saying that the show should be banned. That's not what I'm saying. But I am suggesting that at the bare minimum, people need to see what was actually happening for 22 minutes on camera. They had commercials throughout. Because yes, this is still the cable era. And spoiler alert, if you did remember watching this episode, I'm pretty sure after the things I'm about to get into, you are not going to feel the same way after this is done. In full disclosure, I am a Christian man who is married with children. So I am going to look at all of this from that framework. So here we go. The episode begins with a scene in the hallway at Hollywood Arts Academy. Andre is playing a new song on a piano while Robbie and Tori are listening. He finishes up, playing the notes. There's no lyrics at the time, and he makes that clear. And immediately after, he's getting complimented by both Tori and Robbie. But Robbie's words are, "nice fingering." Now, as an adult, that hits very differently. And yes, fingering is technically a thing in the piano community. But I don't really think it would apply, in those specific words, that sentence. So, the innuendo, remember, we're still in the first, 10 seconds of the episode, it's already starting. And because Andre doesn't have any lyrics to the song, he's trying to figure out what he's going to do, and Robbie says that he can come up with lyrics. Remember, he's always there with his, ventriloquist dummy, but Robbie himself decides to, take a crack at it. So while Andre tries to play out some notes, he starts singing. Tori is listening to the whole thing, and he basically just spitballs some random lyrics. But the lyrics that he comes up with, some of them stand out like this, where he says, "I need you, and I love you upside down, touch my toes," stuff like that. Once again, it's just random lyrics. But this is coincidence number 2, where if you play that back as an adult, it doesn't quite hit the same. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Robbie eventually walks off the set, and then a male teacher comes out. Tori is very excited about an R&B class that she wants to take. The teacher tells her that she's not eligible until she, essentially passes a theater tech class. Now, this creates the moment where she realizes, hey, if I just take the theater tech exam, I can pass the class and move on to the class I really want to take. And, Andre is here for all of it, but that's not important. What matters is the teacher is apparently, he gets a hug from Tori because she's so excited that she's going to be able to take the exam and bypass that class. So now we have a teenage girl hugging a teacher. And this isn't one of them little church hugs. It's an actual embrace. And then she leans in to sniff the teacher. And then he leans back. So now you have a grown man being sniffed by a teenage girl. Apparently he's wearing some lotion, and it's sour cream and onion flavored. Hey, you can't make this stuff up. This is Nickelodeon comedy. And then he gives the lotion to Tori and to Andre and tells them to rub it in. Hey, we don't have to let our minds run with that. He's just saying rub it in. But they rub in the lotion, and then they sniff it, and they're like, oh, it smells kind of funny. But then he tells them to taste it. So they start licking themselves. And they're like, oh man, that tastes good. Eventually, the teacher leaves, and he actually gives them more lotion because apparently they like it. But again, just let this scene sit with you for a moment. And then we get introduced to Cat Valentine. Yes, Ariana Grande makes her appearance on camera. And this time, she is wearing something called Jupiter boots, and she's just jumping around, up and down, up and down, up and down, bouncing across the screen. I mean, that's about it. That's what she does. She bounces into the scene and then bounces back on out. To clarify, this is technically another short scene right after because Beck is the one on camera. He's apparently actually taking photos himself, doing photography stuff. And when Kat is doing her whole bouncing thing, he asks her, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm wearing Jupiter boots so I can be bouncy. And then she jumps away from Beck. Again, for what it's worth, you could just call it a coincidence, but those words just don't hit the same as an adult. Shortly thereafter, we see Tori, Andre, and Robbie again in the hallway. And this time, Tori is starting to stress about taking the theater tech exam. Andre tells her, you do realize Robbie can tutor you because he's amazing at this stuff. He crushed the exam last year. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. But beforehand, his dummy, the ventriloquist dummy, is massaging Tori's back. And apparently she's feeling some type of sensation for it. She even makes a comment in the script. But throughout this whole conversation, Andre is also asking Tori to sing his song, sing it out loud, because, he's still working on the lyrics for this song that, kind of spearheaded the whole episode. And she agrees to do it. And once she kind of gets into the situation with Robbie tutoring her, she realizes that she can't be in two places at once, so he's going to have to find somebody else. So Andre's like, all right, I'll find somebody else. But then Kat bounces by again, the whole Jupiter boots thing. And once she does, creating laughter, comedy, he looks at Tori specifically, and okay, I'm going to ask somebody, but it ain't going to be Kat. Not Kat, though. That's what he says. Which is always ironic because hindsight is 2020, because he's saying this about Ariana Grande, who's about as big a superstar as you could ever get to sing your song. But anyway, it is what it is. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. I'm Ezra2K. If you really want to know the hidden messages behind nostalgic TV, then you are in the right place. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section because I try to read them all. And now we cut to a brand new scene where Andre and Beck are in a room where Andre is getting ready to prepare to, practice his song and figure out the lyrics. And I guess at this point, Beck has suggested that Jade be the one to sing his song. Andre has his, suspicions or, kind of his reservations about whether or not Jade should be the one who fits to sing the song. He said that Jade scares him. Jade actually comes in with a pair of scissors. And when she does, she's very upset, says that somebody sat on her scissors. Obviously, Beck is just kind of, rolling with the whole thing. He's not all that alarmed, but Andre is scared. And in a fit of rage, Jade even takes the scissors and throws them at the wall. They stick into the wall. She's viciously throwing these scissors. Now, this is in the name of comedy, but just to clarify, these are the images that we're getting. So after the dagger scissors, we move on to a new scene. And this time we have, one of those little, text message moments where Tori is sending a text. In the text, she said that Robbie is about to teach her everything she needs to know about, theater tech. And then it has a little emotion, segment where it says feeling thirsty. And it has the emoji with licking the face. Once again, it just doesn't hit the same as an adult when you look back at this. Because remember, this is a show where it has kids 6 to 14 as the primary demographic, and it's topping the charts with that group. If you're 7, this is all flying over your head, I'm pretty sure. But you are watching it, even if you don't know what to focus on. And at this point, we open up to a scene where Robbie is essentially putting, Tori through, an actual tech exam, theater tech exam. So they're at school, in the theater, and she has to run around and press buttons and, cue the lights and all of that. But before we do it, we see 2 life-size cutouts of Cat Valentine. In one, she is blowing a kiss, and the other, her mouth is incredibly wide open. Tori asks him, why do you even have these cutouts? Because he brought them from home. And he says, what I do at home, I don't want to talk about, it's none of your business. So, again, that's just floated out there. No idea why this young man has life-size cutouts of, I guess, one of his friends. And it's not my words, it's his words, because during the theater tech exam, he refers to one of the cutouts as Flirty Cat. And, that's what we're doing. Flirty cat images are there. Interestingly enough, after the exam, or at least the mock exam, Tori does well, but then Kat comes, bouncing into the room. She sees the images, sees the 2 cutouts. she's very like thrown off, and Robbie, kind of admits like, oh, these are mine, but I have a reason. And she just kind of like shakes her head and just kind of deeply concerned and then goes, Jupiter booting and like hopping out of the room. And more or less, that's the scene. Which brings us now perhaps to the biggest moment of the episode, because we now have Jade and Andre in the school working on Andre's song. He still doesn't have the lyrics, and at this point, I guess they're taking a break. Now, we find out it is midnight. Let that sink in for a moment. These are high school kids who are in a school at midnight working on a song. And I'm going to come back to this in a moment, because while they're doing this, in the break, I guess Jade first does something to Andre's hand, makes it all tingly. And then after that, he's struggling to come up with, lyrics. He comes up like some spitball and stuff about, fit tuna fish fillet and blue shampoo and washing his dog. I actually remember this from watching it live or like back in the cable era years ago, which is wild. Because I didn't watch a lot of Victorious, but I remember this scene for whatever reason. And after that, Jade says, she's going to take a crack at it, and she starts singing. And while she does, she's basically singing, some version of a love song or adding those lyrics on top of, him playing the piano. And Andre just gets so mesmerized where he's basically falling in love with Jade in this exact moment. And of course, it scares him because, one, it's Jade, and two, that's Beck's girlfriend in the plot. So after all of this happens around 12 midnight, apparently they leave the room and go on back to their houses. And the next thing we see is Andre at 3 a.m. Once again, we have a timestamp. He's knocking on the door outside of Tori's home. Apparently, he sent a text message. She comes down. She's in her pajamas. He's got a bicycle, I think, and he is in boxer shorts. So apparently putting on pants was too much. So I guess he biked over from wherever he's from in boxer shorts. Once again, this is just the image they're putting out there for the kids, ages 6 to 14. So him and Tori are having a discussion because he's freaking out about the fact that he thinks he's in love with Jade. And Tori tries to tell him, no, you can't be in love with Jade, and, tries to talk him out of it. She actually goes and gets some coffee. I mean, it's Belgian coffee. That's just a random joke thrown in there. And apparently it tastes good, but it's 3 a.m. and they're sitting on the couch. We see no parents because I was starting to think that Tori didn't have any parents. She does. They're just not doing any parenting. I mean, because at 3 a.m. for a teenage girl to have a boy come over to her house wearing boxer shorts, sitting on her couch, drinking coffee or whatever, that's fine. If that's what we're doing. Let's be real. This is far outside of the realm of norm. Now, with Zoe 101, you can get away with some of this because they don't actually have parents. Like, there's no parents in the boarding school. Here, they're living their lives and they have parents. The parents are just, I don't know, ghost, not parenting. Before the scene ends, Tori does try to remind Andre, and I quote, that Jade is a mean and vicious person with psychological problems. Because Andre's like, hey, I gotta tell Jade how I feel, even though that's Beck's girlfriend. If I don't tell her, I'm gonna get wonky, like in the head, like I don't know how to act. I gotta share my feelings. And after they close the book on the Belgian coffee thing, the next scene we get, they're in school, where Andre has apparently finished his song. He's standing there with Tori, and then Beck and Jade walk up to him, and they ask about the song, where they're inquiring, hey, Andre, can we hear the song? Why don't you just listen to the song with Jade? Let's see how it goes. And because he's acting all awkward, because he's trying to keep his feelings inside, he's like, oh, I'll email it to you. Eventually, Beck and Jade kind of walk away and they're like, hey, Andre's acting weird. But of course, Kat comes hopping along again with her Jupiter boots just to add a little bit more comedy. I mean, again, she really doesn't do much of anything in this episode except this. But every time she does, apparently it adds something to the scene. But when Jade and Beck are gone, and now it's Tori and Andre having a conversation, Tori essentially talks Andre into believing that he actually is in love with Jade. Remember, the same woman who tried to talk him out of it is now talking him into it because she's just kind of judging by his behavior. So he runs out of the room in a panic, or out of the hallway. He bumps into Robbie, who, walks in with his ventriloquist dummy. And then the teacher who came with the sour cream and onion lotion comes back with apparently the exam results for Tori with her tech theater, test. And he basically said that she got the highest score anybody's ever gotten, a perfect 100, even higher than what Robbie got. So he doesn't really like that. And then we get another scene where Robbie is seeing them take his photo off of the wall, putting up Tori's as the top student in theater tech, and he's really salty about it. And I think the dummy does most of the talking. I mean, it's nothing all that crazy, but it's still, a ventriloquist dummy, talking, more or less on his behalf. So that duality, like the two split personality thing, I think that's kind of a lot of what you get with Robbie in this show. I mean, it's not really about this episode, but just gonna put that out there. And before the next scene, we get another text message on screen. This time it says that Tori is feeling and looking weird, and her emotion is jaded. So I guess that's a precursor to what we're about to get. And in the next scene, Andre was asked to come over to her house, and Andre does. So he knocks on the door, and this time we see an actual parent. Because apparently Tori's mother opened the door. She's on the way to the market. And, Andre, is announced. Tori's supposed to come out. And even as the mother is leaving, Andre actually tells her, you need to get more of that Belgian coffee, which is just a random joke. However, it's still a little weird for somebody with a guest in your home to tell you what to buy, especially if it's a teenager. But, hey, not really going to think that deep about it because Tori comes down, and this time she's role-playing. She's role-playing as Jade, where she puts on clothes, a wig, all of that, and is trying to display, mean and, nasty behavior. I guess, what did she say? Mean and vicious with psychological problems. She's trying to give that type of energy to show Andre what it's like to be in a relationship with Jade. First, she's a little standoffish, but then she's like, just go with it. So she's out here acting really mean, and Andre's actually trying to ask her out on a date, and she's just, saying incredibly outlandish stuff, trying to, essentially make him mad and push him away. But the scene gets really interesting because then apparently Tori's dad walks in, and he's looking for his glasses. And he asks, like, hey, have you seen my glasses? He doesn't ask why his daughter looks kind of crazy. And then you got to see what his daughter said back. She literally says to her father, if you really want your glasses so badly, why don't you go to the basement and cry about it? Now, she's saying this very loud, very rude, very aggressive. And her father is like, dang, girl. And then he just walks away. He doesn't address the fact that there is a teenage boy in his house, like seemingly not at all, like doesn't really acknowledge Andre in any way, shape, or form. That's a little weird for an actual dad, aside from the fact that he doesn't know that she's role-playing in any way, shape, or form. Like, that's never been clarified. So it's not even just that she tell them off. He doesn't do anything about it, and we never see Tori apologize in any way, shape, or form. So I guess she's just allowed to talk to her parents like this, and that's okay. Because in most families that I know, especially in the black community, that stuff ain't gonna fly. You would get the taste slapped out of your mouth as far as I can tell. Like, that's it. But hey, it's TV, it's comedy. This is what the 6-year-olds to 14, this is what they're watching. And after all that, the scene isn't over. Because Tori continues to be rude, speaking to Andre, and Andre gets caught up in the moment and tries to kiss Tori because he's like, oh, you were just so much like Jade. So now he's, so love-struck and he's feeling all sick about himself because obviously Tori tells him it's not going down like that. And now he holds the pillow, clutches it close to him, kind of like, a little child with a teddy bear, and he starts talking about his feelings. He even said that he stayed up late to write a song for Jade. And then Tori tells him that he has to sing the song, that he can move past his emotions, and he can just swap out the lyrics that say Jade with the word baby. And he's just like, yeah, baby could be anybody. So they make a plan for, I guess, the next day or whatever. There's going to be some presentation, and this song about Jade, they're going to sing it. As far as the jokes in this scene, I did overlook some, so I'll just run it back. When it comes, what Andre says, speaking to Tori, he says, I don't want to tell Jade how I feel and kind of mess up her relationship with Beck because that would make me a bad person. And I told my grandmother that I would not become a bad person, at least until she lost her mind. I call that a nonsensical joke. It's an unwarranted shot at the grandmother because some people actually do get dementia in old age. And I don't really think they should be disrespected in that way. But I ain't trying to be heavy deep, so yes, let's just leave that where it is. And the other random joke is that at some point, they're sitting at a table, and there's, I guess, some nuts that are on the table, like peanuts, I'm assuming, maybe cashews. And Andre takes a bite of the nuts and then spits them out. He's like, oh, I hate nuts. Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything in the context that they're using it, but it's there. That happens. But after Tori agrees to sing the song with him at this, next day event, that's basically the next scene we get. So we see Andre and Tori on stage with a live band. Apparently everybody knows this song he just wrote with brand new music and brand new lyrics. I mean, them two, they've nailed the lyrics. Like, they know it perfectly already, which is very illogical, might I add, like in the music community to, write an entire song and then do it on grand scale in 24 hours or less. But once again, it's Nickelodeon. We can get away with it. So they go up there and they sing the song. And it's more or less, they say it's about his dog. This is what Tori says over the mic because they're like, oh, who are we dedicating this song to? And he's like, oh, it's for his dog. And he's like, I love my dog. But he's looking at Jade and he's singing to her and nobody really knows what it's about. So they sing the song. And I ain't gonna lie, the song kind of slaps. It's legit. I mean, this is what Victorious does. I mean, of course, Cat Valentine, she's bouncing up and down in her little Jupiter boots because, We need that comedy because that's all the value she's really providing for this episode. And I'm pretty sure that the song is called 365 Days to Get to You or something like that. But when it's all done, and this is how the episode concludes, Jade gives Andre a hug. So, I mean, the song they worked on, don't really know what that has to do with this, to be real. Because like the whole episode about them working on a song. And I don't hear anything about that song because we have this brand new one and Tori, who was busy, is now singing with him at some event. So still don't really get how the core of the plot is relevant to where we are right now, aside from the whole crush thing. So after the hug, the question that Tori asks Andre, like, hey, how do you feel? Like, are you past it? Or, are you moving through your, crush zone? And he's like, oh, I think I'll get over it in time. And then a very attractive girl walks up and asks Andre if he wants to hang out. Because apparently that's how it works. Like, girls just ask guys, do you want to hang out? And like, at the drop of a hat, you just hang out at that moment. Because I guess that's how high school dating goes. I mean, not the high school I went to, but maybe that's how it actually goes somewhere else in the world. And he walked off with her, feeling pretty good about himself. And then he tells Tori, before he fully goes off, Jade who? To show that he's over it. And that's the end of the episode. I mean, yeah. Robbie comes back in the credits with his ventriloquist dummy. And he's saying a whole bunch of stuff, which we could probably read into if we wanted to. But that's the episode. When you consider this is a 22-minute episode that had all of this stuff in it. Everything from the male teacher who's, embracing his teenage student, giving her lotion, telling her to rub it in. I mean, you could say we're making too much out of it. But when you have this many coincidences, from the fingering to the images, like great fingering, like the line, which is a little out of place, to Cat Valentine with, the posters of her, like, the posters with her mouth open and, flirty cat blowing the kiss. And like, when you add it all up, 12 midnight teenagers working in a school, let's go there. You do realize that this is the first time in kids television or like TV aimed towards children we've seen something like this. If you go all the way back to Boy Meets World, I'm pretty sure this is season 2. There was an episode where Corey and Topanga actually fall asleep working on a project in the school building. They were doing like a video editing thing. And everybody assumes when they find out that they were together overnight that something happened. When I say something happened, you know exactly what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, there's a whole conversation in that plot about, Topanga's reputation and is she, one of those types of girls who would do that with a guy? And eventually Corey has to be honest about the truth. Like, no, nothing happened. She's been a perfect lady. Like, nothing like that went down to kind of shift how people would look at her. Like, that's how they handled the topic there. Here, they act like it's just normal to, like, be out at midnight in a school building, might I add, and then showing up at somebody else's house at 3 a.m., a boy going to a girl's house wearing boxers because he couldn't even put on pants for the purposes of, we could do this all day long. But this is victorious. And this is season 2, episode 7. I just picked it at random. I mean, I might go through other episodes if people are interested and want to walk through it. But when it comes to hidden messages, if you want to understand what young people are processing, because kids don't know what to focus on, so that means it's all just kind of sweeping over them. Like, it's almost like they're drowning in the information, don't really know where to land. But some of it sticks, and it's very impactful. Just like the representation of Tori pretending to be Jade and telling off her dad something fierce. The type of language that I've never seen a young person use. I mean, yes, somebody somewhere on a video, maybe on social media. But for real, kids don't talk to their parents like that because it's not just disrespectful, it's highly problematic. And there's no apology made. You could say it's just entertainment. And if it is, the real question is, why are we entertained by it? And more importantly, why does Nickelodeon think we should be entertained by it? Because in their words, if you go all the way back to the formation of their network, specifically into the 90s, they made it clear that they wanted to make TV programs that children wanted to watch, even if it didn't reflect what their parents wanted them to watch. And I really want to know, if parents were in the room with this program, like watching Victorious, especially this episode, how did they feel? I'm not saying that it needed to get banned, but it definitely needed to get exposed. And that is what I'm here for, to tell you. If you actually made it all the way to the end of this video, I do have to admit that thank you doesn't do it justice anymore, because you are a real one. And if you want more from me beyond this, just realize there ain't no shame in my game. This is a new channel, so it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.